But every time I start to think I'm feeling better, I always lose a vital part that holds it all together. The time I dedicate to you, it alternates to never.
Hi everybody, welcome to SoO NoRa. As you know, I'm Nora. We're here with Gabriel Gresso. He's a defense attorney here in Las Vegas. He's done a wide variety of cases. He worked on O.J. Simpson's trial out here.
I did.
And how was that?
That was a very interesting experience.
What made you initially become a lawyer and choosing the defense side?
You know, I'm an immigrant from Argentina, so I wasn't born here, and I sort of adopted the United States as my country and learned a lot about the Constitution. And my big historical hero is Abraham Lincoln, and he was a criminal lawyer. He was never a prosecutor, but he was a criminal defense lawyer, and that's something that influenced me.
One thing that has hit this country hard yesterday, the Casey Anthony trial, everybody's genuinely upset about the verdicts that came out of that. Now, even with a genuine public association of her being guilty, what do you think went wrong on the side of the prosecution to override that even genuine view by the public for the jurors to find her innocent?
One thing that no one took into account is that the major metropolitan areas in Florida have some pretty liberal jurors who don't just rubber stamp what the prosecution wants. So that's one aspect of this trial. With respect to what the prosecution did wrong, both two respects, the prosecution and the defense in this case, made the trial more complicated than it had to be. Because the bottom line in this case that both parties lost sight of was that there was no proof as to how the baby died and actually who killed the baby, or if you can even say someone killed the baby, as opposed to that it being an accident, okay? Because what people have to understand is a murder trial is about a killing, someone's death at the hands of another. That's basically what homicide is. But it doesn't really matter how mean the person is. All the arguments that the state used in this case, she's a bad mom, she's sleazy, she dates a lot of guys, she didn't care about her daughter, she got a tattoo a few days after the baby disappeared. You know, things like that. They tried to make her look really bad, but they lost sight of the fact that none of those things really showed that she did anything to the baby. It just showed that she maybe was uncaring and callous and not a good mother, but apart from that, they really didn't have much other proof. And the state, I think, lost sight of that. They lost sight. They fell into a trap that prosecutors sometimes fall into, which is, I like to call hubris. The word means they're too cocky.
One thing you hit on is you talked about the things that they were actually blunt about. Was talking about her, being, sleazy, getting that tattoo, being a bad mother. I mean, in the general public, we all get that there was not enough evidence to hold her accountable for the murder. But what they did prove is that the neglect of the child. So what do you have to say about the verdict of her not being convicted of child neglect, in the sense that she did forget not to, report her child missing after 30 days and things like that?
Anybody who's had kids will tell you that 10 minutes of not knowing where your baby is too much, okay? The fact that she didn't report the child missing, the fact that she played a lot of games, she was, I believe she was lying to her mom, saying to her mom that she was with the baby in Tampa and then in Jacksonville, and in reality the baby was gone. Not reporting a baby missing isn't child neglect when the baby's dead. The child neglect has to happen before the baby dies, okay? And the problem in this case was they didn't have any evidence to show how the baby died. All they had was, well, look at how bad of a mom she is, look at how much she lied, look at all this other stuff. And the problem is, for first-degree murder, you have to have either premeditation, which means it has to be planned out, or it has to be what's known as a felony murder situation, where a murder takes place during the commission of a felony. Like, for example, a classic felony murder is people who walk in and rob a store, and somebody in the store gets shot during the robbery and killed. That's felony murder. So those are the two types of first-degree murder. And then on top of that, you have to have aggravating circumstances to seek the death penalty. And in this case, they were seeking the death penalty on a mom, but in reality, they didn't really have any evidence that she did anything bad to the baby that caused the baby's death. It was just speculation, and that's what got the state. Because I can tell you that I don't think it was because the defense attorney did that great of a job. I respect Mr. Baez. He won a case. He won a big case. You can't argue with success, and the jury, despite the mistakes made by both sides, I think came to the proper verdict.
So, as a lawyer, you believe the right verdict was made?
Right. People have to understand about the criminal justice system is it's set up where the philosophy of our system is that better that 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person is convicted. So, in this case, is it possible that she strangled her daughter and threw her in a garbage bag and dumped her in the woods? Yeah, it's possible, but there was no proof of that. It was just speculation. Is it possible that more likely this chloroform thing took place? That's possible too, where somebody tipped her off about the chloroform being something that would put a baby to sleep, and then she'd go out and party, and the baby would sleep for 8 hours, 10 hours, and not wake up. She would have taken one road. Well, she could have fessed up to it and called the cops and said, hey, I tried to put my baby to sleep with chloroform and it ended up, not working. Or did what she did, which is what I think she did, is try to cover it up.
So, as set aside, you said as the lawyer you believe the right verdict was made, but as a person and as a father, do you think that justice was served?
It's hard to separate those two things. 2-year-old babies don't just die. And the fact that there was a lot of effort put into covering it up, clearly something happened to the child that was illegal, as opposed to, let's say, you've heard of babies dying of natural causes or something. If the baby had died like that, there was really no reason to cover it up. But because the baby probably died at the hands of somebody, there was a reason to cover it up. So the system really it's almost like making a movie. What I'm saying is, a crime took place, and that crime then, months, years later, is brought into a courtroom through the use of physical evidence, witnesses, eyewitnesses, things like that. And studies have been done to show that eyewitnesses are unreliable. Physical evidence can sometimes be unreliable. So you really don't know what happened. It's almost like making a documentary. You get the producer's point of view of what happened as opposed to what really happened. Well, in a trial, you get the prosecutor's point of view of what happened, and you get the defense's point of view of what happened. But if the prosecutor and the defense attorney were actually at the crime scene when it happened, they couldn't be involved in the case. So no one knows, no one was present there. So all you can do is go by what the verdict is. And that's why it's so important that when the verdict comes out, well, that's the way it came out.
Well, we want to thank you for coming out. I think you definitely opened up, I know you opened up my eyes to just things I would never think about as just being in the general public and not having the knowledge or the background to see the aspects. And
My pleasure.
so if any of our friends are in trouble, besides getting a little slap on the head from me and Netta, you can come see Mr. Gabriel. Gabriel's definitely a man who's not afraid of his intelligence, but he represents it to the fullest. You get the glasses, which is the cool thing. You get the glasses? Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I like those glasses.
See? Now, we are so good. And that's so NoRa. And we're out.
Tell you what it feels like. I know I see it like they all would. Make it bad when it's all good. Need the one to make the view right.